Hi everyone, welcome back to another Martin's Home and Garden Houseplant of the Week. This week we are talking about the super popular Meyer lemon tree. These guys are native to the country of China, meaning they love lots of warm temperatures and lots of humidity. They're super popular right now in the spring and summer months when they're actively blooming and producing lemons. They will produce lemons after they're about 2 to 3 years old. Younger plants typically don't produce fruit, but the older ones do. And they produce beautiful white flowers right before they start producing lemons, and they're very fragrant. They smell almost like a honeysuckle bush, if you've ever smelled one of those. They are naturally more shrub-like in their growth pattern despite being called a tree, but you can prune them to look more like a tree without harming the plant or fruit production if that is your preference. And they will grow about 10 feet tall if you plant them outdoors, but only about 3 to 4 feet tall indoors. They can get a little bit bigger than that. It just depends on kind of if you're sizing up the pot accordingly as it's growing. So if it doesn't have enough room to grow when it's in a pot, it'll only be as big as you allow it to get, if that makes sense. So if you want your own little lemon tree in your house, keep watching because we're going to show you how to care for them today. The first thing we'll talk about is the light for these plants. These plants want at least 6 hours of direct sun per day. If they're getting any less than that, they will not really grow as fast, they won't produce as many flowers, and their lemon production will decrease significantly. So you want to make sure you're getting that 6+ hours of direct sunlight a day. Avoid shade with these at all costs. They can grow in partial shade, but they just won't be as happy, like I said, and they won't produce as much fruit, which is what we want with these guys. The next thing we'll talk about for lemon trees is the watering requirements. This is probably one of the most key aspects of the care for lemon trees. It is key to make sure that the soil stays moist and not soggy. A nice little trick that I like to tell people to kind of figure that out is to stick your finger down in the soil up to your middle knuckle or so. And if there feels like there's any moisture, wait to water it until it dries out a little bit more. But if it feels like it's completely dry, like I'm talking bone dry, then you can give it a good soaking and soak it to where the water comes all the way through the bottom of the pot. That brings me to my next point. Make sure that whatever pot you put a lemon tree in has a drainage hole in the bottom, because if it stays too soggy and sits in that water for too long, it can be prone to root rot. So making sure that water has an escape with a drainage hole will help to ensure that your plant does not get root rot. And the next thing we'll talk about with these is fertilizer. So whenever you go to water these in the spring and summer months when these are actively growing, actively producing fruit, you want to fertilize these with a citrus tone. This is the Espoma citrus tone. You want to kind of sprinkle it around the base of the plant on top of the soil. You can be pretty generous with it. You don't have to use like a certain amount really, but you can be pretty generous with that. And then whenever you go to water it, it will kind of water in and slow release into the soil. And do that at the beginning of spring, right as the temperatures are starting to warm up, your plant's starting to shoot out new leaves. Give it some fertilizer, then do it again, probably 3 to 4 months later. Give it some more fertilizer just to kind of finish out the season. The next thing we'll talk about with these is temperature and humidity. Since these guys are from China, like I said earlier, they like warm temperatures and lots of humidity. They prefer temperatures and they're happiest whenever they're in weather that's around 50 degrees to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. So if you are putting your lemon trees outside in the summer months, which I recommend because they're going to love all of that sunlight they can get out there and love all of the humidity as well. If temperatures are dropping down below 55, 50 degrees Fahrenheit, you're going to want to bring the lemon tree inside because that can be detrimental to the plants. They also love humidity. So we do have a whole video on why humidity is important and how you can increase humidity in your home. So whenever you do bring your plant indoors, you're going to want to make sure that it has adequate humidity like it did outside. So go and check out that video. It'll be linked right above me here. Using humidifiers, using a pebble tray, misting your plant, all of those good things. Go check that out there to find out more. And the next thing we'll talk about is soil for these plants. They do need a really well-draining soil despite liking their soil to stay moist. So using something like this, which is the Espoma cactus and succulent mix, or any kind of cactus and succulent mix that has some sand in it, some perlite, that is going to help to increase drainage for lemon trees immensely. So you want to use something like that for sure. And like we mentioned at the beginning of this video, if you want more of a tree shape for your lemon tree, you can prune it, but only prune it whenever it is at least 3 to 4 feet tall. So these tall guys behind me, they are pruned to be more in a tree shape. So once they're about that tall, then you can prune them. You want to just prune as close to the base of the tree as possible. Just prune off those lower limbs with some clean shears or scissors or a clean knife. And you want to make sure that you're not pruning whenever the tree is flowering or fruiting as well. That can be detrimental and kind of shock your plant, so make sure to avoid that. The last thing we'll talk about is harvesting the lemons from your lemon tree. So the fruit will only ripen while it's still on the tree, so you want to make sure not to pick any of your lemons off until they're fully ripe. One way to know if they're fully ripe is they'll kind of be an egg yolk yellow color, and they'll also be slightly soft to the touch. So give it a little squeeze, make sure it's not super firm, just slightly soft. If it is ready to be picked, you want to, again, use clean shears, pruners, or a knife and prune it at the base of the lemon. That way you're ensuring you're not taking off too much of the tree like you would if you were kind of tugging on the lemon. You could damage the branches. But that is all that we have for you guys today. We hope you enjoy growing your lemon trees at your home, and we will see you guys next week. Bye!